gang, welcome back to the garage for another restoration. Actually, this time it's a group of restorations from one of my favorite companies, ChannelLock. We got a set of pliers here that I've been accumulating at all the estate sales and garage sales that we've been going to, and we're going to go through and give them a cleanup and a good restoration that they deserve. So why don't you come on in closer and we'll take a look at them, and while we go through the restorations, we'll talk a little bit of history about the company as well. Come on in. All right, so tear down, pretty easy. We got one nut to take off here. The thing with these guys is the end of the screw is peened over. Usually just loosening this nut will break that through. Then you can put it back together, peen it over again. So we'll start with the 420s and start tearing these down. So now that I got the nut moving a little bit, you can see how that peening over is starting to peel up. So instead of trying to force it all the way through the nut, I'm just going to take this needle file off as much of that peening as I can, and that should help get that nut off a little bit easier. All right, so we got the nut off, and we didn't mess up the threads. So we'll clean this up, fix up the top. We're going to hit these guys, not all that rust down in there. We're going to hit these guys with a wire wheel just to get off any loose stuff, see what we're dealing with, and then dunk them in the evaporust. Alright, wire brushing is over, at least the first wire brushing. That gives us an idea of what we're working with on the condition of the metal. The 420s came out nice. I could tell right now that we've got a blotchy finish on the metal that we're gonna have to work to smooth out and see if we can get it looking nice. If not, then if you're faced with a metal finish that's not ideal for a mirror look at the end, you can always get it as smooth as you want and then do some cold bluing on it. So that could be a possibility on this guy. get you in a little bit closer so you can see the logo and the condition of the metal. So on these guys, you can see on the one side of the handle here, the pitting is pretty significant, and unfortunately it is right on top of the logo. So we're going to have to be really careful when we go through and sand out those pits so we don't lose that logo. Knurling on the handles on the 407 is going to look fantastic. Look how sharp that looks. With the chevrons on the bottom here, you just don't see that anymore. And this is why ChannelLock is one of the companies I love. This is the kind of things that they had. Even the later ones that were simplified are still beautiful looking. You don't see tools like this anymore. And each company, they had sort of like their own style of knurling. And I think ChannelLock's is one of the coolest looking ones. And it just made you proud to use the tool. All right, so we got them out of the wire wheel. We got to get them over to the evaporest bath and then a second wire wheeling, and we're going to keep going. So. All right, so these old 407s cleaned up, polished up, but we got one last thing. We got to clean up these teeth on the jaws just a little bit. Just give them a little bit more of an edge. All right, take them over to the vise with a file, I think. All right, well, that's one done. Hit it with the conditioning belts. We got some sanding in there. We got some polishing. We sharpened the teeth up. Now we got to work on the famous 420s. We have to make a bolt for the slip joint pliers and polish up and clean the handles on these probably 1980s vintage diagonal cutters. So one of the first channel locks to make its debut was this little guy here, the number 407. Came out in the late 30s. You'll see them in the catalogs. There was a 307 and its bigger brother, the 407. It was marketed as a battery terminal plier or general use, general purpose pliers. This one, you see it still has the Champion D'Armament Meadville, PA stamp on it. But the new, as of 1934, underneath all the pitting, the new ChannelLock logo. And this one, it has the early knurling on the handle. There were 6 lines with bars on one side and chevrons on the other, sort of like an arrow pattern. Later on, this changed to this pattern here. It was simplified, just 3 lines, still with the bars and chevrons. This appears in some of the early 1950s catalogs, but you'll find a mix of them. You'll see some of these ones, the first ones, some of the updated knurling, and then you also see ones that have from the same time period plain handles. So this one and this guy here, the 420, there's some of the first channel locks that came out. This one here is a first generation, what they call first generation channel lock. You'll see the ridge pattern, and that's what the patent was for, the stronger design instead of just a single pin on the hinge. The weight, the strength was now spread across that entire ridge. This one here is a channel lock, but it's a second generation. This one has a little extra rib on the side here, a little extra ledge to add support. So when the patent was running out in 1952, they updated the design a little bit and came out with a couple other things, but that was the main one, that extra ridge on the side here. So this is a first generation channel lock. This 420 here is a second generation. And then the third generation, as of 1963, when they changed the company name to ChannelLock officially, made the last few updates to it. So we got a first generation and a second generation. All right, so here's where we're at. We got the really old pair of 407 channel locks done, cleaned up nice. We got the 420s all polished up, looking good, and we still have the diagonal cutters. We got to clean up the grips on those guys. Shouldn't be too bad. And we got these pair of 5/16 channel lock pliers. I think these guys are going to be next because we have to, if you remember, we got to make a new bolt. This one is broken off halfway through, so we're going to use this guy, cut it down, thread it, and round the top off. Hopefully it will look good. So let's get this guy cleaned up next. Okay, so while I'm going through and sizing the threads on this new bolt to go through, it goes through one side, doesn't quite fit through the hole on the other side of the handles. So I'm looking to resize this and thread it down to a smaller nut. I go to my drawer looking for a smaller nut, probably 1/4 by 28 maybe threads. And what do I find in my box but leftover parts from a wrench that was too far gone to save. I saved the bolt from it, not remembering. So good news, I don't have to worry about turning down the head on this guy, rounding it off and making a new nut and getting it to fit through the handle. I have one already ready to go. It is definitely rough, but it does fit. It's the proper style and size. Even has a little nut for it. So good news, saves me the work. Bad news is you guys don't get to see the finished product of turning this into one of these. But we did get a good start on it, and now we have something that we can use maybe for a later project. So let me get this guy cleaned up and move on. All right. It's why you always keep extra parts. Okay, so just so you guys don't feel gypped, we got some bonus footage. I'm actually going to turn the top of that bolt, make it round and make the nut round, just to show you the whole process of making a new bolt for that pair of pliers. So let's get started. Okay, so we've got the top of the bolt done. We just didn't get the nut finished yet, but you get the idea. So instead of the broken bolt, we made one out of an extra bolt that I had lying around, not knowing that I actually had a spare from a really rusty old pair of pliers that I took apart, but I kept the bolt. So the one that I made fits in there really nice, slides, works great. But we're going to clean the other one up. We'll use that one instead, since we don't have to take the time and redo the nut for it. But there you go. That's how you do it for a pair of pliers. All right, 3 out of 4. Last up, diagonal cutters. And then these guys here that everybody's familiar with when you think of ChannelLock, the blue handles on them. ChannelLock, Meadville, PA. ChannelLock was actually one of the first companies in the 80s to apply for and register a trademark for a color. So this is officially trademarked as ChannelLock Blue as of the 80s. All right, as you can see on the inside, the original color of that ChannelLock Blue and the sort of stained outside. So we're going to see if we can bring that color back a little bit with some degreaser and some steel wool. All right, so we got the handles mostly cleaned up. Came out not bad, not bad. Not as bright a blue as they probably originally were, but still looking good. Now we're just going to address the metal, and what I want to do is use this buffing wheel on my Dremel and clean the metal off. Now it's probably overkill. If I was using a wire wheel on here, I would, definitely, so I don't mess up any of the rubber. What I'm going to do is just take this aluminum tape and wrap the top of the grips in that, so I don't nick it with Dremel. All right, that's the last of them. Number 4. Diagonal cutters all finished up. All right, gang, well, that about wraps up this episode of the restoration for all these ChannelLock tools. I have to say, this was a fun one. We've had 4 different tools here from ChannelLock spanning 4 different decades, but that doesn't even scratch the surface. The company, based right here in Pennsylvania, just north of me, is working on 14 decades of making tools. They started, I think, back in 1886, and they're still going today. So a lot of fun doing these. Local company, they came out fantastic. So what do you say we jump in, take a look at them, what they look like now? Alright gang, well that wraps up this video, the restoration of the Made in the USA ChannelLocks. I had a lot of fun making the video. Hope you had a lot of fun watching it. As always, be sure to like and subscribe to catch future episodes from the garage. Again, thanks for stopping by. We'll catch you on the next one.